And I'm curious on your thoughts. Do you believe that Caitlyn Clark should be on the U.S. Olympic team? And do you think it is 90-10 for what I'm seeing? Because I don't see as many people. I've seen very few people say, absolutely not, she should not be there. Because even the ones that are saying that she shouldn't be there are still couching it in some way. Where do you see all of this Caitlyn Clark outrage falling?
Yeah, it's I'm in that 10%, but I'm in that 10% just with a little caveat as well. Obviously, the same thing you're saying. I've seen great players left off the Olympic team before. I mean, for a prime example, obviously the big one was the 92 Dream Team, right? When
yes.
Christian Laettner made the team over Shaquille O'Neal, right?
Yes. And Isaiah Thomas was left off that team.
Yeah, we know that. But I mean, just the college player coming into the league. So I'm just comparing it for that reason. And obviously, when you look at their college careers, Christian Laettner was probably the one that should go. He was the most decorated college basketball player for a long time. Shaq's a phenom. We know that he would have fit right on in that team, the number one pick as well. I mean, overall going into the league. And so you know how dominant he was going to be. And so many people were upset that he didn't go over Christian. So we talk about that whole thing with, and I'm going to tie it into what we're talking about with Caitlyn Clark with, is it because people thought that Christian Laettner wasn't better than Shaq? Or was there some racial undertone that went into that situation going as well with, you know, being the great white hope situation with Christian Laettner going in, and then you have Shaq, this kind of wild card, number one type player that's going to be a phenom in the league. When you bring those stories to the surface, it can be kind of similar with this situation, minus obviously there's nobody that would have been on the Olympic team other than Caitlyn Clark in that situation. But the 12 that they got going, they are the best players in the world.
Sure.
And Caitlyn Clark hasn't proved that yet on that level. So obviously when it comes to playing and picking the best 12 to go, they probably got it right. Now, as far as her being there because she's a Caitlyn Clark show, I don't know if that helps or hurts anyway, that situation. When you go to represent your country, you want it to be all harmonious and beautiful, and this celebration of the women going to get a gold medal for our country. If Caitlyn Clark would have been there, and maybe she goes down the line if somebody gets hurt, but initially, just the animosity that's already been brewing with that situation would not have helped this situation at all.
No, and that is part of why Christine Brennan wrote that the role of Caitlyn Clark within Team USA was one of the reasons why she was left off, was because they were worried there would be backlash that she would only have 10 minutes per game. Now, in this world that we live in strong opinions, and you're either this side or that side, and it's something that you want to get into, I'm in the middle on this. And the reason that I'm in the middle is I do believe that but I'm more to one side, but I'm not as polarizing.
Yeah.
I do believe that she should have been on the U.S. Olympic team.
Mm-hmm.
And we've even seen it with the men's team to this point where you're not taking the 12 best.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking the 12 that fit. And the reason you're doing that is because sometimes the 12 best don't have that chemistry.
Sure.
You don't always have the Kobe Bryant willing to say, all right, Carmelo and LeBron, you guys score. I will be the defender, and I will lock down, and I will set the tone. That helps a lot when you have someone, a player of that caliber with those accolades and accomplishments, being able to do that.
Right.
Makes it so much easier on everyone else. That year is the exception. It's more of how do we fit these pieces in? How do we fit these roles? And I would even say with the men's game, when we're looking at this summer for their team, there was even conversations popping up about, are people going to realize that Anthony Edwards is option 1A on this team now? During the playoffs, now it's going to be his team, that there's going to have to be some rite of passage was the term that you used last week, which was perfect. And I think the same thing here. I think she should have been on the team because what I think would have happened, Kerry, is we would have had all of this drama that has been surrounding the WNBA and Caitlyn Clark's role in it squashed to some degree. And what Christine Brennan is reporting is that things are so petty and that the jealousy is so rich, or that they are so fearful of how people respond to Caitlyn Clark, that it wasn't worth the risk of the possible backlash. Mm-hmm. The risk to me was, let's bring Caitlyn Clark in with these 11 other superstars, and let's have these 11 other superstars embrace her, or she work with them. And all of a sudden, you know what? There isn't the rivalry between Caitlyn Clark and Breanna Stewart, even though we had the argument of who was the better collegiate player and who was the better player. There is no animosity between Asia Wilson, now who does have a shoe, and Caitlyn Clark having a shoe. There's none of that, because you know what? They're teammates. They're playing together. We see them together. That was the opportunity that I think was missed, was that we had an opportunity to erase a lot of the negativity where we think the entire WNBA, including some of her teammates, are against her, to show her that the best in the game welcome her, and that Caitlyn Clark would also have the opportunity, and I don't think that she has done this, to not always be about me. That's right. If she has 10 minutes to play and she only comes in and shoots threes, then that's what it is. That's her role. That shows that she is also willing to accept the role that was given to her, and it's not having the ball in her hands all the time and taking all the shots. I don't even think that that's even a huge narrative, but I think that would help along the way. That's the opportunity that I think was missed, was to squash all of this. And while she isn't one of the 12 best, we haven't always done that anyway. This would be an opportunity to kill some of that narrative. As crazy as it sounds, I actually compare it to Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift.
Okay.
Where all of a sudden now you have this crossover of all the Taylor Swift fans are becoming Chiefs fans. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's some football Chiefs fans who are getting into Taylor Swift. Now all of a sudden, if you're a Sabrina Ionescu fan and you see her and Caitlyn Clark being like super pals in Paris, and guess what? They're inseparable. Blah, blah, like you're like, oh, I love Caitlyn Clark because she loves Sabrina, or I love Sabrina because her, you miss those opportunities. So that's why I think she should have been on it, because I think it would have squashed everything.
Ooh, I'm glad that you're being optimistic about that. In a way that it would be that easily squashed. I mean, obviously, it's been.
If I like this to reality with my eyes closed and hands over my eyes,
you are. But I love that, though. I'm an optimistic guy as well. So Dan, I love that take. It just would have set a precedence again that we're putting somebody on the team that's not deserving. Now, it doesn't have to be the 12 best. But if you talk about that 92 Dream Team, or even that the Redeem team with Kobe and those guys, if you look at those 12 guys, all those 12 guys were like, even if they're not the best, the 12 best, they're like the top 20 in the world. And so then you start fitting from that top 20 to need, and that's still a little different, right? So I hope that this thing gets situated, and I hope that it becomes a harmonious situation overall. But putting her on this team this year with all the turmoil and all the stuff that's going on right now, I just don't think it would have fit well. And obviously, it's been backlash with people and other women in that sport already. Dan, I don't know, but I'm with you. I hope they get it solved really soon, though.
There is the fervor is maybe the word over this whole sort of topic is crazy to me, because we knew it was going to be a topic. I didn't think that people cared as much about it. When the U.S. beats Finland 100-48,
it'll be a lot.
It's what are we gonna do? Are you gonna tune in to watch USA women's basketball team? Probably, because you're a hoop head.
Yep.
And I'll check it out. And it's everybody else that now may not do so because she's not on the team. Like, if you already know the outcome, you already know that the U.S. is probably going to win.
I like that.
And that's been one of the predominant opinions on Twitter of like, well, I'm not going to watch now. Now that seems to be kind of a selfish stance, but there is some truth to the fact of the piece that I was interested in is not going to be there, so I may not take as much interest into this sort of event. And
that's true. Yeah.
I don't know if it's fair for the viewers to take hostage, if you will, to say like she must be on or we're not going to watch, because it's quite the decision, and I'm sure NBC and all of the broadcast partners would love to have her on there. I don't think that's the reason that you should be picking a roster. I told you the reason why I thought that it should be. But when you're going to be winning games by 40 points and 50 points, maybe there are other decisions that you end up having to take into account.
Yeah, you're right. Me as a hoop head, I mean, I love, in theory, right, the position or the spot that she would have taken would have been Diana Taurasi or Jewel Lloyd or Sabrina Ionescu, right? Like, they're cemented in those positions anyway, right? So then it's just almost as if you're adding Caitlyn Clark as a charity case anyway. So even for her, obviously there's going to be a point where she can come back and she'll be on the Olympic team and she'll win her goal if she wants. But my initial feeling is that if she was on this team.
It's funny because you started out with the great example of the Shaq versus Christian Laettner.
Uh-huh.
And I would say, and even at that time, Alonzo Mourning, was a player and was actually taken ahead of Laettner in that draft.
Yep.
But I would say that Christian Laettner earned that spot.
Yeah, no,
I
agree
for what you said, for
sure.
what he accomplished, and there isn't another player that in women's college basketball that would earn that spot onto the women's team. It's just not how the women do it. Do you think race again is the whole deal in this?
I think sometimes, so especially at that time, so right, like in that 92 team in that 92 dream team, that Duke team was either loved or hated. But when you look at the Duke team, they would look at it from a racial standpoint, right? So even at that point where, say that the 91, that Duke team against the Fab Five of Michigan, all black team, Duke was, I don't want to say predominantly white, but, white. It was more of a
two of their most popular players, Laettner and Bobby Hurley, were white. Yeah.
And so people took that stance a lot of times when it comes to, they have all the best things. They have the great academics, and they also can play basketball. Like, it's just a connotation that came with that, where with Michigan, right, it was like they had the same thing. I mean, I'm not going to say they got their grades and did the whole schooling thing the right way, because those guys were going to the league right away. But you look at academics like Michigan, that has to be taking place. That has to be done. The skill, the players, obviously. And then you look at the color of them, and then, they wear the baggy shorts, and some people didn't like that from just from a standpoint of not even looking at the basketball or the quality of hoops they were playing. They were a really good team, but they looked at the exterior and what it looked like, the aesthetic of it. And the aesthetic of Duke is prestigious, right? And so just when you look at that from the connotation of white, black, privileged, non-privileged, it always comes into play.
When you look at 92 as well, you had Bird and Magic on their way out. Like, Bird wasn't going to play anymore, and
exactly.
But you had the opportunity for Bird, Magic, and Jordan to all play on the same team, and that was really kind of the headline of that. Christian Laettner probably wasn't going to be on an Olympic team after that. Shaquille O'Neal, yeah, probably.
Exactly.
And so Caitlyn Clark, you expect to at some point. So can you be really, really brokenhearted over about? No, she'll be on an Olympic team when it's here in LA in 2028. There's the likelihood of that, I would say, is high. So missing out now, like, her time will come, but it is the fans who are sitting there,
for sure.
Yeah, just wringing their hands and cracking their knuckles. And again, I may be blind, I may be naive, I may be too hopeful in that scenario, but I would have thought that to have Caitlyn Clark not always be the center of attention, because maybe she would have been, and maybe it would have overshadowed. I choose to believe that it would be the other way. When you're only playing 10 minutes, you only have this little bit of window, and I don't think there would be as much backlash when you're up 80 to 38 in the second half of a game. I just don't, but I could be wrong.
Dan, and think about those 10 minutes she plays, right? Like, the story's still going to be those 10 minutes, and it takes away from what the team is actually doing in that case as well. It's a loaded thing, but yeah, it's
But if she didn't get into the game until they were up 80 to 38,
right?
Then it's then the point is moot. Now people will be like, "Well, why can't you get in there earlier?"
Exactly.
But that'll go away.